is in town for today and tomorrow. Recap, preview of the NFL draft. So much to get to on today's show, including an absolute stunner last night in the NBA. And we've got it all for you on today's program. A full mock draft of round number 1. Last year, if I can remember, Dustin, I think we had a mixed bag last year in our first round mock.
Yeah, I think we did pretty good, all things considered. We didn't have a vested interest for each team. We were trading back and forth. I came in the next day. You're like, we did pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we missed just a few players. I know both of us had Joey Porter Jr. in round number 1. That did not happen last year. Should have happened for Joey Porter Jr. We'll do that later on in hour number 1. We'll dive into your scorecard here shortly, and we'll get up out of the way and dive into that mock draft, picks 1 through 10 in due time, picks 11 through 32 after that. And I am going to allow one trade in a mock draft today if Dustin would like to make it, because the team that is most near and dear to your hearts out there based on our current and local populace, not my near and dear to my heart, but the Minnesota Vikings likely to trade tonight. So I will give Dustin the option to trade the Minnesota Vikings up the draft boards. We'll see if he takes me up on that option. He'll do the odds. I'll do the evens. Packers have an odd pick, but I will pick at pick 25 for the green and gold. Hour number 2, headlines and highlights. Our draft contest continues. I've got about 15 to 16 entries right now. I'd like to double that by the end of the show. So if you'd like to get in on our long-form draft contest, it's not just for tonight. It's not just for tomorrow, but over the weekend as well. It's taking place at the Friday Parlay, a big prize pack, Twins tickets in store, Whiskey Myers concert tickets in store, and your usual Friday Parlay winnings all in a giant bag just for you. If you could be the most successful predictor of the NFL draft, the number of quarterbacks in round 1, the second quarterback taken tonight, Minnesota's first pick in the draft. Who will it be? Most people landing on J.J. McCarthy. We got a Bo Nix prediction. We got a few Drake May predictions, and an interesting one in Dallas Turner, the edge rusher. Maybe, just maybe, the Minnesota Vikings don't draft a quarterback at pick 11. Maybe they get somebody at 23, or maybe they roll with Sammy D for 1 year. Does Denver draft a quarterback? That's a simple yes, no. Tiebreaker, total receivers taken in the entirety of the NFL draft. You make those picks on air. You get into the overall contest here and an opportunity to win big. I'm going to try to fill that thing up. So as I go to break here in a moment, I'll take a couple entries as we get going on that draft contest. Now on to your scorecard last night. We're starting out in the NHL world. Boston takes a 2-1 series lead with a road win at Toronto.
Back of the net. Samsonov's lost his stick. Marchand shoots. He scores! Brad Marchand! Only Cam Neely has scored more playoff goals than that guy. He makes it 3-2 Bruins.
4-2 the final score. Bruins on top. They take a 2-1 series lead. Elsewhere, it was Vegas over Dallas 3-1. Vegas takes a 2-0 series lead and a big road win in overtime to knot the series between the Kings and the Oilers 5-4. Kings win on the road last night. Tonight in the NHL, Panthers at Lightning, 6 o'clock on TBS. The Panthers have a 2-0 lead. Same deal for the Carolina Hurricanes. 2-0 lead for them on the road against the New York Islanders for Game 3 tonight, 6:30 on ESPN2. And the NBA, just like no one saw coming, a barrage of threes that we have never seen in postseason history leads to a gigantic upset. Heat over the Celtics.
It's the Bam. He'll push it up left side. Porzingis in front. Hand off to Tyler. Sets a screen. Brown bounces off of it. Tyler for 3. Tyler knocking down another 3.
Another 3. Tyler Hero, 24 points, 14 assists, 23 threes last night for the Miami Heat, and they were a 14.5-point underdog. They win the game by 10 points on the road. Gigantic upset. That series all of a sudden pretty darn interesting and maybe just a beginning of a nightmare for Boston. 111-101 the final last night from Boston. Elsewhere, OKC, big-time dominant performance. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, fantastic. 33 points in the win, 124-92 over New Orleans. It sets up tonight in the NBA. Cavs at Magic, 6 o'clock on NBA TV. Knicks at Sixers, Game 3, 6:30 on TNT. Nuggets at Lakers, 9 o'clock start TNT. Denver leads that series 2-0. Major League Baseball finals. Cubbies over Houston yesterday, 4-3 the final. Chicago now 15-9. And it was a big day for the birthday boy yesterday. Minnesota Twins Willie Castro puts the icing on his own cake.
This ball well struck deep into the left field corner for Castro. That ball sailing, and disappearing into the seats for a 3-run homer. Happy 27th birthday, Willie Castro, as he'll make the loop. A 3-run homer for Willie Castro and a 4-0 Twins lead.
6-3 would be the final. Of course, that's Chris Atterbury on the Minnesota Twins radio network. Joe Ryan earns the win. He's 1-1. Castro's birthday and a big day. 3-run homer there to advance the lead to 4-0. Final score 6-3. Today and tonight in Major League Baseball, early start for the Twins. Early start for us. 11:30 pregame. 12:10 the first pitch time at home against the White Sox. And on to the NFL draft. We'll hear some sights and sounds here in regards to what is going on with the NFL draft. But first, let's talk a little bit about a quarterback that Chris Carlin believes is the most ready to have immediate success following his drafting tonight.
Jaden Daniels is going to make the immediate impact. I think people talk about his athleticism and his ability to make throws and all that, but I think the thing that really gets overlooked is the offense that he played in at LSU. What he was asked to do was a lot more processing in the pocket than I think people give him credit for. So I think the mental part of the game for Jaden Daniels is going to come a little bit quicker because he has been in an offense where you have to go through your progressions. It's not just read half the field. It's not just, let's make everything as easy as possible. No, Ian Fitzsimmons and I were just talking about this, the idea that he has gradually kind of built out the way he plays. I think he is the most pro-ready, and I think he's going to be the best of the group, too.
I really feel that way as well as far as pro-ready goes. If you were to tell me which guy is going to be the best of the group, the obvious easy answer is Caleb Williams. But for me, it's Drake May, and it's if Drake May gets some time to sit and learn and refine his game. He feels like a modern comp to a lot of people will say Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. The guy to me that Dan Orlovsky said is a lot like Drake May is Jordan Love, and a guy that took some years to study and learn and progress and go through what it's like to be a professional quarterback and prepare. As for the Minnesota Vikings draft position, they hold picks 11 and 23. Here's Jeff Darlington on the quarterback that they're rumored to be infatuated with.
Now, I'm told throughout this draft process that they have had their eyes on Drake May. And surely May is one of those quarterbacks we expect to go early. The New England Patriots currently hold the 3rd overall pick. Now, they could end this debate and take May on their own, or they could open their ears to a potential trade from the Vikings. If the Vikings were to trade up to 3rd, May would be the person that we would be watching. I'm told that there are no other quarterbacks that would covet that kind of attention for the Vikings at this point.
Pretty interesting stuff from Jeff Darlington. Of course, it's not breaking news. Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, probably the quarterback of the future for Minnesota. Dustin, as we welcome you in on this Thursday edition of Overtime, it's a great day to be a football fan. Everybody's hopeful. Everybody's excited. Has your opinion wavered at all over the last couple days?
In terms of my prediction for what's going to happen with the Vikings, I would say it has made me. I've been paranoid. Let me put it this way: I have predicted by 50.1% that it'll be Drake May. But if you in the last 24 hours, if you pull up any credible mock draft, almost all of them say J.J. McCarthy, and the odd part is a lot of them say McCarthy at 11. So it's almost as if the draft community has decided that top 3 or top 5 pick for J.J. McCarthy is coming back a little bit. So where I'm at on May versus McCarthy, my recommendation has been Drake May for months, and my prediction stays with Drake May. It's really the mock draft, the credible mock draft community. I'm not just talking about Jake's mock draft on Reddit. I'm talking about the guys that usually get it right are saying J.J. McCarthy, but then the sources that I trust within the Vikings community, they just keep chirping that it's going to be a trade with New England at number 3. And the thing that always gets me back to May as the prediction is the Vikings hired Josh McCown in February as their quarterback's coach. And he was the high school coach of Drake May in North Carolina. And I just don't think that's a coincidence.
It's interesting for sure. There's a lot of options there. I did have a little exercise for you as we went off the jump here. Before we dive into this mock draft, I'm very excited about that. I am allowing a trade if you'd like to make a trade. Mm-hmm. Before we dive into this 3-up, 3-down exercise, though, something that's interesting, I think it was you on Twitter yesterday talking about Michael Penix, and maybe he's the guy. I know you're more comfortable with him than Bo Nix, and we'll wait and see there, but how are you feeling today? Because a lot of reports are saying that maybe the Vikings could wait till 11 to get McCarthy. I don't think that's the case. I think he's a top 6 guy because of where the Giants are as a franchise. And if he falls into the Giants' lap, that might just be their guy. Do you think the Vikings can be patient tonight and still wind up with a quarterback?
Yes, I do believe they can do that. Another thing I keep coming back to is this. If the Minnesota Vikings, not the fans, if the Vikings leadership, so Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, Kevin O'Connell, if they really, truly like Michael Penix, this event should be anxiety-free because he can be their insurance policy or their bet hedge. It's just that I don't necessarily love Michael Penix. The injury history scares the you-know-what out of me. And then I just don't think he's quite as talented as Drake May and J.J. McCarthy. Plus, he's going to be 24 next month. And I can't stand old quarterbacks, especially for a team that never tries the rookie quarterback thing. I will get behind Penix sooner than I will Bo Nix if Bo Nix is the pick. It's going to take me a couple days because I've been so invested in May or McCarthy. But the fan base is actually pretty like, you know what? If we get Penix, great. It's kind of like a split akin to how many folks liked Kirk Cousins. It's like a 70-30 type of thing. So please give me, for a successful draft tonight, what are we, about 9 hours away? For the Vikings, I need May or McCarthy, and then it'll take me probably about a week or so to warm up to Penix.
And Penix, an absolute stud the last couple of years, battled injuries early on at Indiana, was an electrifying player there for that program, went on to Washington, played in the national championship game, and that dude, an absolute stud as well. I don't want the Vikings to get Penix. If I had to choose who I want the Vikings to get, I'd probably go number one, J.J. McCarthy, because I think he's probably the riskiest, in my opinion, out of those guys. And then Bo Nix, I'd love for them to get him, but again, who knows? But the guy that I don't want the Vikings to get no matter what is Jaden Daniels. I hope he doesn't fall to 3 or 4. I think he is pro ready. I think he's a stud. And of course, I'm exempting Caleb Williams from this conversation. I have a very, very strong feeling, just like everyone does. He'll be a Chicago Bear at pick number 1, although some people saying that pick might not be super concrete. 3 up, 3 down. I'm just going to do this from a Packers perspective quickly. Draft picks in the last 10, 15 years that you disliked for your team, the Vikings, on draft day, and draft picks that you loved on draft day that didn't work out, draft picks that you hated that did work out. For me, the obvious one is Aaron Rodgers. I did not like it at the time. Of course, I was a younger kid. I was probably 13, 14 years old when they drafted Rodgers. I loved Brett Favre. I was always, hey, give him carte blanche. I don't care if he retires every offseason. Come on back, country boy. Let's lead this team to the promised land again. And Favre was still pretty dang good. I did not like the pick at the time. Surely happy to be wrong and happy for our team to be prepared. Other guys that I didn't love, Rashawn Gary, picking a project player and a guy that took a couple years to get his wheels turning under him at pick 12 did not feel like a good pick for me a couple years ago. He's proven me wrong. Elton Jenkins, of course, the big bugaboo with Jenkins is they put his name up on the screen. Packers select Elton Jenkins, center, Mississippi State. I was like, why do we need a center? And turns out he doesn't play center. He's a guard, and he's a really darn good guard for us, so I feel good about Elton Jenkins. Picks that I loved, and they didn't pan out. Eddie Lacy, number 1 for me. Loved him. He panned out for a couple years as a good player, very underrated receiver, and then the weight issues and everything else, the conditioning late in his career, late in that first contract, the rookie deal, kind of sent him out of town, sent him packing quickly. Demarius Randall, the corner, had a moment or two, decent year, then fizzled out. And the other guys loved and loved him on draft day, but didn't work out. Amari Rodgers, the wide receiver recently from Clemson. I thought he would be awesome. I thought it was cool to have A. Rodgers throwing to A. Rodgers on the offense. Did not work out. Clinton Dix also on that list for me. That's my Packers perspective. Picks that I hated that worked. Picks that I loved and didn't. What about you for the Vikings?
All right. So on my Vikings list of picks that I disliked, I'm going to use disliked pretty loosely because there's really not many Vikings picks that I'm like, oh, how could they do that to me? The first one notably is Adrian Peterson in 2007. I wanted the Vikings. I was an alcoholic 23-year-old. I wanted the Vikings to draft Brady Quinn and do this quarterback thing. Thank goodness I was wrong. And my beef with Adrian Peterson was we already had Chester Taylor, who had just rushed for 1,200 or 1,300 yards.
Fun player, yeah.
So why do we need another running back? Well, I was wrong there, obviously. Hall of Famer to be. In 2015, when the Vikings drafted Stephon Diggs in round 5, I considered him just a guy. There's no way on earth I saw him blowing up into what he is or was and still is with the Texans. And then the Anthony Barr pick in 2014 was the 9th selection on the board. And it would almost be like Chop Robinson went that high tonight where you're like, what? That's a little high. That's how I felt about Barr, and he turned out to be a Pro Bowl Viking for a decade. Ones that I liked that were wrong. This list is quite long. And I stuck to recency for the listeners. So Mike Hughes in 2018, I thought that was a sound cornerback pick. I thought that would work. And then the guy's first game, he had a pick six, and I was like, we are on our way, baby. Mm-hmm. And then he fizzled. Injuries derailed him, and he's still around somewhere. I think it was last with the Lions or something like maybe the Falcons. Irv Smith Jr. I thought that pick was a slam dunk because he basically was a muscular wide receiver. And he showed, little flashes of being a red zone target, but injuries sort of derailed him, and then he just flat out not very good. He went to the Bengals last year, a team that was screaming for a tight end, and he had like 100 yards all year. And then lastly, a blast from the past, the 2019 draft. There was a point in Vikings history where we were starved for offensive guards. We just wanted somebody in the building to realize all we need is a decent one. So when the Vikings picked Drew Samia in round 5 of 2019, he's supposed to be a mean, nasty guy from Oklahoma or Oklahoma State, one of those two. Apologies to any Oklahoma, there was a rivalry there. I was like, all right, this guy, this can be the mid-rounder that we need to be a good OG. And he turned out to be a laughingstock. And those are mine.
Yeah, Oklahoma for Drew Samia, and interesting stuff. And I had to ask you this because I had a coworker who's a Dolphins fan. We were talking draft. He's like, gosh, the Vikings do such a great job at drafting wide receivers. We were talking about all the juicy rumors, the Justin Herbert trade, the Justin Jefferson trade, everything. He said, if they do trade Jefferson, the Vikings draft receivers so well. I said, don't forget about Laquan Treadwell and Troy Williamson. Yeah. Which one of those two, as we put this segment to bed, we're going to come back with the first 10 picks of the mock. We're going to take a super break since I botched the open to the show. Which of those two receivers, Williamson or Treadwell, did you like more at the draft pick time?
I liked Treadwell more because there was kind of no strings attached about... Well, let me put it this way. With Troy Williamson, we were all disgruntled that Moss had been traded, and there was no human being that was going to replace him. They could have drafted, like, A.J. Green, and we still would have been like, this guy ain't Moss.
Yep.
So we went into that draft with a sour taste that Moss was gone, nobody was going to replace him, and then the guy flat out stunk. Since I've talked to Troy Williamson on a couple podcasts, that guy is so marvelous. He's talked about mental health in sports and how his career was basically derailed by anxiety. And back then, 20 years ago, it was like a naughty word. He is so enlightening. So props to Troy Williamson. Treadwell, there was no vested, rotten, what are we going to do when Moss is gone? He was just supposed to be a good receiver, a big one, that all he really did well was block as a wide receiver.
He would have been a great Green Bay Packer. That's all they really want receivers to do from time to time. We're talking Vikings. We're talking Packers. Dustin Baker of Vikings Territory and Vikes Now on YouTube. Quite the growth lately there. He was on K-Fan yesterday. Yeah. Congrats on that. And, of course, talking with Paul Allen, previewing the Minnesota Vikings draft. That's what we're going to do next. We got our top 10 of our mock draft coming up next. Bears are on the clock. You've got the odds. I've got the evens. I'm going to try not to poach your quarterback from you at pick number 2, but we will wait and see. The mock draft coming up next. If you want to get in on the draft contest, by the way, I'll take a couple entries over break. 605-362-3776. 605-362-3776. If you missed it yesterday, this is taking place of the Friday parlay over the weekend. And if you'd like to get in on our draft prediction contest, a couple big prizes in store, Twins tickets, Whiskey Myers concert tickets, and of course, your usual Friday parlay prize pack brought to you by Possibilities in High-End Glass and Tobacco. Dial me up right now. You want to get in over the break. 605-362-3776. Our mock draft for 2024 begins next on Overtime.
Get ESPN with the free app and online. Grab your phone or call us up on your smart device. Now let's get you back to Overtime with Bert Rameen on ESPN 102.3 and AM 1000 KSOO.
Right back with you on NFL Draft Thursday. We're ready to rumble with our mock draft here for 2024. Dustin has the odds. I've got the even picks in the first round. He's going to graciously let me pick for the Packers at pick number 25, and I'm going to graciously allow a draft day trade. No other trades allowed. We're going to stay pat with every other team except for the Minnesota Vikings, who are likely to trade up. For you Vikings fans out there, I don't want you picking at 11 or 23 because I don't think it's going to happen. So we're going to allow Dustin to move up the boards if he would like to. And with that, let's go ahead and fire it up with our 2024 NFL mock draft. No trades except for Minnesota. We start at the top. The Chicago Bears, pick number 1. It's on you, my friend.
I'm going to start off by saying that, to me, following the sport for over 30 years, it's a little weird we never heard a single morsel of will the Bears trade back, because they really could have had an exact same trade as last year and then just went and got Drake May, and they would be so affluent with roster building. But never heard a single thing about that, so I'm not going to be the one to start it. Caleb Williams, USC to the Bears, and that era begins in the Windy City.
Caleb Williams to the Bears, the first pick of the draft. What do I think will happen at 2? It's a lot of people's guess. You heard Jaden Daniels a little bit miffed about the potential speed dating. 4 different dudes there interviewing for the same job. Could you imagine if dudes dated like that, or women dated like that? Hey, 4 dudes show up to the restaurant same time. Whichever one I like the best, you stick around for the rest of the date. Jaden Daniels will be the pick tonight at number 2. At least I think so. And that sets up you, my friend, for pick number 3. The New England Patriots are on the clock.
So we're going to have this trade here.
It's up to you.
All right. Well,
you tell me.
All right. I thought perhaps we'd have a smoke-filled room deal. I think realistically that the Vikings giving 3 first-rounders, so 2 this year and 1 next year, although we've talked ourselves into believing that isn't enough, I think some semblance of that will be enough for the Vikings to do business with the Patriots. So what say you?
I think it's enough. I really do for the Minnesota Vikings. 11-23 next year's first. And I agree. We talked over break. I agree with you that there might be a little bit of a kickback. Maybe it's next year's second. Maybe it's next year's third or fourth from the Patriots that kicks back to Minnesota, because some people say that's too much. But I'll tell you this, Vikings fans, you should close your mouth, because when this quarterback goes on and wins yourself his first Super Bowl in team history, you're not going to talk about the cost. And with that, the Vikings on the clock at pick number 3. And
I would be a little weird if I swerve now. So give me Drake May as the Minnesota Vikings franchise quarterback. Let's hope it's for 10 to 15 years.
Drake May, pick number 3. Arizona Cardinals, pick number 4. This pick likely to be moved, but if it is not moved, which what we're doing the rest of this draft, I'm going to go ahead and go a big need here for Arizona. They shipped off Hollywood Brown this offseason, and in comes Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Arizona Cardinals at number 4. Go give me the pick number 5, the Chargers.
Chargers is where it starts to get super interesting, at least just for team building without trades. Like there's a possibility that a team could trade up here and grab J.J. McCarthy. But I think the Chargers will ultimately go Joe Alt, and then they'll have 2 wonderful tackles in Rashad Slater. I wanted to pick Neighbors here, but I just don't know if Harbaugh cares that much about wide receivers. The only one he ever really had in San Francisco was Crabtree.
It does feel a little bit high to be going Bowers there, a little bit high to maybe to be going Neighbors there. For the New York Giants at pick number 6, this one's on me. I think, and I'm buying all the smoke and the fire and everything going on there, that everything is on fire with that franchise at the most important position. I'm going to go ahead and say J.J. McCarthy, pick number 6 to the New York Giants tonight.
Wow. Okay, that's surprising in the sense I think it's a smokescreen for the Giants. I think they've been talking a big talk because they want Neighbors to fall to them. But your theory makes sense as well. All right, so what am I at? The Titans?
Tennessee Titans, big needs, wide receiver, offensive line, edge rusher, defensive back.
All right, if Joe Alt had not gone to the Chargers, he'd go here, but let's lock in Malik Neighbors to the Titans. I think that's certainly a need, and that makes sense for them.
And again, Treylon Burks has not worked out so far for the Tennessee Titans, so that makes a ton of sense there at pick number 7. Pick number 8 for the Atlanta Falcons. I had a buddy text me and said, hey, we're getting mocked Neighbors tonight. I don't think I'm going to make it to tomorrow if that happens. I don't want any more playmakers. I want a pass rusher. I want some offensive line help, and I want some defensive back help as well. The Atlanta Falcons, interesting position here, cornerback and a guy that has fallen around top 10, top 5, top 15. Terrion Arnold, Alabama, I think is the best fit for Atlanta and what they do at pick number 8. So that's where I'm going to go there. Terrion Arnold off the board at number 8 to Atlanta.
It's really funny that your friend said that, and, complete respect to him. I don't think I've ever heard a football fan this day and age say, I just don't want
him. He said it last year about Bijan Robinson, too. He did not want him. He really liked what they had in the backfield, and I agree. Algier's a good player, but he didn't want that. He wants you kind of build the foundation from the inside out. He doesn't want all the playmakers. They've got those. They spent money on them. He wants the foundational pieces.
All right. Well, no, that's good for him. All right. The Bears here, probably a dream scenario for them. They don't like. But kudos, Rome Odunze from Washington, wide receiver to the Bears at number 9, and they get the quarterback and their stud wide receiver.
If fate would have it, I'm picking for Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets here. I said this a couple weeks ago. I'll say it again. The New York Jets are in win-now mode more than any other team in the National Football League. They've got an aging roster. They've added aging veterans and free agents to the mix. They want to win now while Aaron Rodgers is still upright and ready to go. Maybe 1 year, maybe 2 remaining for Rodgers, depending upon presidential status. And now I think they add a weapon. I think they're going to go Brock Bowers. I really do. Pick 10, Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia, lands in the Big Apple. On to pick 11.
I'm glad we didn't have Bowers fall out of the top 10 because even though it might take some time to get going, like a lot of tight ends, it's cool that his talent was recognized there. All right, so we are at the Patriots.
Patriots at 11.
And so they're going to do some roster building here. They need some tackles, some edge rushers, eventually a quarterback. But I'm going to outfit them with offensive tackle Talise Fuaga. Hopefully I pronounced that somewhat close. Oregon State.
All sorts of big tackles in this first round. 10 offensive linemen is the rumor. 8 tackles that played tackle in college in the first round tonight. Pretty good bet there. Denver Broncos pick number 12. I think I'm going to do it here.
Yeah.
I really
Which
do.
one?
They got Zach Wilson. And I think I might go quarterback for Denver in round number 1. I don't think they have the ammo to trade up. I think that's why they went out and got Zach Wilson. And I'm going to roll... Yeah, I'm going to go with Bo Nix here at pick 12. I want to go Penix, but I like Penix's fit somewhere else that's coming up soon as well. Bo Nix, pick 12 to the Broncos. What about 13?
Man, all right. I'm tempted to go Michael Penix here because
that's what I was thinking, but up to you.
The Raiders are the only other team besides the Patriots later on. I am going to trust that Antonio Pierce thinks Gardner Minshew is a decent starter, so I am going to go tackle here. Troy Fautanu from Washington. Fautanu from Washington.
You got it.
To these, although, remember, folks, this is your warning. The Raiders usually do something weird, and remember that when we get to this pick tonight.
And the Raiders were rumored to maybe trade up, and they really, really like Jaden Daniels. Pierce was on that coaching staff at Arizona State before the transfer, before Pierce went back to coach in the National Football League. The New Orleans Saints, very interesting team. They're a team that needs a quarterback in the future, but what do they need right now? They had a untimely retirement as of the last 24 hours on the offensive line. I think they go back to the offensive line. There's going to be a big run of O-linemen here. J.C. Latham, tackle from Alabama, needs a little bit of work, but he is a New Orleans Saint to me at pick number 14.
It's a really good pick because it also aligns with a lot of their mock drafts. For some reason or another, I had to look at their mock draft database, and Latham was a popular pick.
So Latham to 14 with the Saints. You're on the clock now with the 15th pick and the Indianapolis Colts. A lot of fans think that Brock Bowers might fall that far.
Yeah.
And if he does, that makes a ton of sense. Where are you going here for the Colts?
Yeah, what I don't want to happen is Bowers falling to the Bengals because that's like the only thing, well, until yesterday.
Yeah, until yesterday.
To that team needed. All right, the Colts actually have a pretty good depth chart in most spots figured out. They can get a little richer at cornerback, so I'm going to go Quinion Mitchell here, who I believe is the best CB in this rookie class.
Quinion Mitchell going pick 15. That's good value according to Pro Football Focus. Again, PFF.com, one of many great mock draft simulators out there. The Seattle Seahawks on at pick number 16, guard. Not really a first-round guard. Crazy available here, and a value-wise, you don't really see guards go in the first too often, especially not near the top. Edge rusher, linebacker, safety. The guy that makes a ton of sense to me, Jared Verse, Florida State. Lock that in, 16 to Seattle.
That'll be noteworthy that we haven't picked Dallas Turner.
Yes.
We went Verse.
Yep.
If we're wrong about something, it's probably going to be that. All right, Jacksonville Jaguars. I know that they need an edge rusher because they're always in the trade rumor mill for Danielle Hunter. Even though they have good edge rushers, I'm going to go Laiatu Latu from UCLA. That dude, when you watch his tape, it's so fun just to experience. Now, I'm also the guy that just passed on Dallas Turner. We got to get him off the board soon, but give me Latu to the Jaguars.
And I don't think Dallas Turner will go 18 to the Cincinnati Bengals. We had somebody like this last year that fell way too far. I can't remember who it was. We talked about it. Why has nobody picked him yet? We keep missing him. We'll get to Dallas Turner eventually. Cincinnati Bengals, big needs. Tight end, not going to happen in round 1 if Bowers is off the board. Tackle and defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman. For the tackles here, going to be a big run. Give me the tackle from Penn State, Olumuyiwa Fashanu, in the first round for the Cincinnati Bengals. Their most important project over the last 3 off seasons, find a way to protect Joe Burrow. They've done a decent job, and last year kind of freaky as far as his injury goes, but more protection coming for Burrow and the Bengals.
I was graced with having the Los Angeles Rams pick, and I say graced because these sons of guns haven't picked in the first round since 2016. So we need like the applause voice sound effect. They're going to replace Aaron Donald with Byron Murphy from Texas, who I would love in an alternate universe to go to the Vikings, but I have the Vikings making that big trade. So Byron Murphy to the Rams, their first-round draft pick in 8 years.
Byron Murphy to the Rams, defensive lineman from Texas, and that sets us up now for pick 20. The Justin Fields and Russell Wilson and Mike Tomlin-led Pittsburgh Steelers. Wide receiver, center, tackle, and cornerback. The best cornerbacks on the board, Cooper DeJean, Nate Wiggins, do different things. DeJean, a slot guy, hybrid box safety, interior corner, do-it-all guy. Nate Wiggins, the outside, physical man corner as well. Kool-Aid McKinstry also on the board. I'm also going to go tackle here because every single mock draft I see has 8 tackles in the first round. They got to go somewhere. And I'm going to go with the versatility here because they need a center bad in Pittsburgh. Graham Barton, I don't know if you knew this, in high school was an all-state center, was recruited as a center in college, played his freshman year at center, was an all-ACC performer there, kicked out to tackle because the team needed him to. He's got versatility, tackle, guard, center. Graham Barton, I think, is going to be a higher pick tonight than many think he will be. Pick 20, Pittsburgh Steelers, Graham Barton, the tackle, guard, center, do-it-all guy from Duke.
Wow, okay. So we are at the Dolphins.
Miami Dolphins, pick number 23.
All right, and they don't...
21, excuse me.
Okay. This one is a little tricky. They're not going to take a tight end. There's not any good ones now until later on, which is how most drafts are. I'm going to stick with interior defensive line, and I think he wants to be called Johnny Newton now from Illinois. Give me him to the Dolphins at number 21.
Okay, Jerzon Johnny Newton from Illinois. That's a guy that could fall out of the first, could be in the first, all the tools, Big Ten performer, all Big Ten guy, and really, really talented player. Philadelphia Eagles pick number 22. They're set at receiver, although they said they need a receiver on PFF. Linebacker, defensive back for Philadelphia. I hate to do this, and I'm going to do this. I hope Cooper DeJean falls to the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. I still don't think it'll happen. Cooper DeJean, Philadelphia Eagles. He's listed as the 8th best player according to Pro Football Focus. He'll go pick 22 to the Philadelphia Eagles, and I will be taking an extra drink when that happens tonight.
This is a smart pick by you because in the last few drafts, outside of the 2021, we usually end up leaving the draft saying, how did the Eagles pull that off? So that is an Eagles pick to get DeJean, who many just have fallen in love with.
Yep.
All right, so that brings us to the Patriots pick, and I'm tempted to take Dallas Turner here, but they do need a quarterback to watch and learn behind Jacoby Brissett, so this is where the Patriots have it both ways. And they get Michael Penix Jr. from Washington.
Michael Penix Jr. is going to be the 6th quarterback taken in the first round at that pick at pick 23 that now belongs to the New England Patriots in result of our one and only trade in our mock draft this year. Let's talk pick number 24, Dallas Cowboys. They have a lot of needs. Running back, wide receiver, center, tackle, defensive line, interior, linebacker, cornerback. What makes the most sense to me is probably bolstering that secondary a little bit, or maybe something on the defensive line. But when you look at the options here, Dallas Turner, Adonai Mitchell, Nate Wiggins at corner, Kool-Aid McKinstry, I'm going to go with the obvious here, and I think they're going to get a top-tier running mate. If this is the case, which, again, probably mispicked verse earlier, Dallas Turner, let's lock that into Dallas on that defensive side, and they're going to have the best pass rushers in the NFL.
Dallas to Dallas?
Dallas to Dallas.
My scorchingly bold take here is, for those Cowboys, is the Cowboys' way too early draft, Jonathan Brooks.
Brooks?
At that spot. I know it's way too early.
I know. I was thinking about it.
But he's from Texas. Jerry Jones is old school, and they blatantly need a running back. That's my big, bold hot take for the night.
So I'll pick 25 here. I'll give you pick 26 here. I'll give you pick 26 for the Buccaneers. Packers on the clock, and I'm going to be upset. Cooper DeJean off the board. He is my top pick right now, and it ain't close as far as guys that could fit with the Green Bay Packers. The best available, Amarius Mims, a huge tackle from the University of Georgia, makes a ton of sense. Nate Wiggins, cornerback. Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback from Clemson and Alabama, certainly makes sense. Green Bay needs a center. Jackson Powers-Johnson, the best center on the board. And by the way, fun fact, centers with the least bust rate among first-round draft picks, but they don't get picked often in the first round. Also, safety comes to mind. There's a lot of my guys that I have. I've got about 6, and I'll unveil those later in the show, that I think are presumptive Packers after tonight. DeJean's on that list. Kool-Aid McKinstry's on that list. He's the top on the board there. Kool-Aid McKinstry to the Packers. Physical corner, do-it-all guy. The Packers just got a new defensive coordinator who sharpened his teeth and cut his teeth under that secondary kind of program. He wants the physical nature. He wants a program builder and somebody to build around from day one on the job. Kool-Aid McKinstry, Alabama for Green Bay.
I'm going to ask you as a caveat there, they're going to get phone calls at that spot if the board looks like that. Is there any chance they trade back and stockpile?
I would love to trade back and stockpile, especially because this is not arrogant for me, but the Green Bay Packers last year had a lot of needs. This year, there's not one need that screams for the Green Bay Packers. We have to have this player. We don't have it on the roster right now. The Packers have a complete depth chart right now. Mm-hmm. There's room for improvement at corner and at linebacker and other spots, but Green Bay in the first round does not have any screaming scorched earth needs. So yes, I would love to trade down, especially if Cooper DeJean is not there.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are up at 6, and their 2 top needs are things that you don't need to draft right now, which are running back and tight end. They do, however, need offensive line help in the interior, so this is where Jackson Powers-Johnson goes off the board to those very Buccaneers at pick number 26.
The Arizona Cardinals, I'm giving you that one back, actually. That's an odd. So 27 Arizona Cardinals, you're right back to it. Their second pick of the night. They went receiver at 4 with Marvin Harrison Jr. What you got?
Oh, man. I'm going to need a second here.
Okay, I'll talk a little bit. But Jackson Powers-Johnson, top center in the draft. Second best center, Zach Frazier from West Virginia. Those guys likely late first, early second. Frazier probably mid-second rounder. But again, according to Hembo on the ESPN Morning Show, centers are the safest first-round pick. If you make one, they're pretty darn consistent and reliable. Where do you go now? Pick 2 for the Cardinals on the night. Pick 27.
It would be really fun for their sake if they doubled up on wide receivers, have a summer full of that momentum, how good that offense can be. But I'm going to go Nate Wiggins, try not to overthink it, have him go to the Cardinals at pick number 27.
All right, pick number 27 locked in. Now the Buffalo Bills. This is almost too easy. Pick number 28, you got to go receiver. Although I'm not a huge fan of either of these guys based on their skill set matching up with Buffalo, the need is so darn dire. Do you go Adonai Mitchell from Texas, Troy Franklin from Oregon, Ladd McConkey, great name, from Georgia. Also other names on the list, Keon Coleman from Florida State. I'm going to say this now. I'm not going to take him, but it would not blow my mind if Keon Coleman gets into the back end of the first round to the Bills or to the Chiefs tonight. Let's go ahead and punch it in. Adonai Mitchell, 22nd ranked player, goes to pick number 28 for the Buffalo Bills. They get their Stephon Diggs wannabe replacement. We'll wait and see there. On to pick 29 for the Detroit Lions.
So the Lions are kind of like how the Packers where you just described, where you look at that depth chart and it doesn't have a whole lot of glaring needs. So when I make a pick, whether it's for the Packers or the Lions, from a Vikings fan perspective, I always think what's going to irritate me the most. Because it's usually how it works out. I think that Chop Robinson is guaranteed to be good, and therefore the Lions are going to pick him, and he will be good. So give me Penn State edge rusher Chop Robinson to the Lions.
And he would be one of the few guys this year that makes that huge combine leap. Again, heading into the combine, he was a second, third round guy, and then you see him at the combine, and it's all anyone could talk about was his 40 time, his bench press, his 3-cone, his 5-cone, everything going on. Chop Robinson, a big draft stock boost over the NFL combine. The Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, they just locked up Rashad Bateman a little bit longer, although I don't think they view him as a long-term answer. Guard, tackle, edge rusher, cornerback. I'm going to go tackle here. Amarius Mims to the Baltimore Ravens. Not flashy, but something that they need, and a big fit there at the end of round 1.
And that brings us to the 49ers.
Pick number 31, the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, they need offensive line help, but
and cornerback help. Best corner on the board, Mike Sanderstill of Michigan. So we're getting kind of down to it. We've been relatively chalk. Best player on the board, Brian Thomas Jr. of LSU, who's ranked 25th.
No, we need him to go to the next team and make that fantasy football heaven. Why don't we... I don't think that Mike Sandstrom guy will go in the first round.
I don't think so.
He was a third rounder for so long. Let's go Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle, Oklahoma. The 49ers always seem to build the trenches effectively, and I think that is a sound pick. Guyton, Oklahoma 49ers.
I'm on board with 8 tackles in the first round, by the way, because I think it's happened over and over again. I think the Packers likely to take a tackle as well. We'll wait and see. Last pick of the draft, the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to lock that in too. Brian Thomas Jr. is kind of a one-trick pony in college. He's kind of that underneath slant guy. But as far as the Chiefs go today, if you're healthy, you're on the field, you can catch the football, and you fall over, it's good enough for them and good enough for Patrick Mahomes. That is our first round. And again, let's look through this really quick. You had the Vikings moving up. The big faller, Dallas Turner, I think that was more of a little bit of an oversight there on just looking at that board. Jared Verse getting the pick there. He ended up going, where did I take Verse? He was at pick 16, and Turner fell down to pick 24. That's probably the biggest faller. What stands out to you otherwise on the draft board that we just did?
Well, what I've been saying in support of a Vikings trade, at least from a Patriots standpoint, we made it happen where the Patriots have roster building to do. And they stole 3 first-rounders from the Vikings. They got their offensive tackle. They got Penix as their quarterback. And then next year, they can get whatever they want when we look at that draft board. And then just pound home the depth of offensive tackle. Any of you folks who do a mock draft before the event tonight, you're going to see anytime a team needs an offensive tackle, there's one. It's like, oh, which one of these guys do I pick? There's so many in this draft. It kind of feels like some of those wide receiver drafts that we've had recently. If your team needs offensive line help, this is a very good day for football in general.
All right, so Drake May is your best case scenario, and is it still your best case scenario if it ends up being the 2 ones this year and 1 next year? Is that still elation for you regardless of the price tag if it is that?
Yes, and I'll be glad if it's capped at only that. You know, we've been placed in this pot of water that has just been a slow boil, where 3 first-rounders was sticker shock 2 months ago, and now it's like, oh, that's all it will cost because of the narrative. Like Tom Curran from NBC Sports was on a YouTube show about 2 weeks ago, and he said, no, the Patriots are probably they're going to want 5 first-rounders. And I'm like, what are we doing? Is that even legal? I don't even think you can trade 5 first-rounders. And so once you have the narrative dragged all the way that far, I was content doing 3 first-rounders, not too much more than that. But the good part about Vikings football right now is Kwesi Adofo-Mensah isn't going to get ripped off or hosed. He's so paranoid about value that we're kind of lucky that we have a guy that's not going to say, you know what, screw it, let's just give away everything. He's going to have that constant pull from his Wall Street background. So, yes, I would willingly give up 3 first-rounders for Drake May. I would have to sit there and think long and hard about it for McCarthy.
And J.J. McCarthy, probably not pick number 2 or pick number 3. Earliest for him, looking like pick 4, pick 5, pick 6 for McCarthy. The Giants rumored to be active in dialing the numbers and calling up, maybe moving up. You think it's a smokescreen? Do you think it's more about confidence in Daniel Jones or restrictive nature of Jones's contract?
I believe it's because this very group of leaders just extended Daniel Jones.
Yep.
And no matter what their owner says, like, oh, we'll support if they want a quarterback, they would be saying that they got it wrong a year ago. And this isn't like, oh, this guy fundamentally changed. Like, this is the same guy that they extended. So they'd basically be admitting defeat this soon when Malik Neighbors will be staring at them in the face. So I believe if they, I'm guessing, studied the evidence to figure out if we should pay Daniel Jones, somebody smart came to that conclusion. You would think to be this high in football or high up in football that you would be smart. You have to surround your quarterback with weaponry. When Daniel Jones is on, he's pretty good. So I think that it's a smokescreen that they've wanted Neighbors all along. If this was the new regime, you know, Dable had been fired last year or something like that, then I could see it. But they just extended this guy a year ago, and to just be done this soon it feels like wishy-washy leadership to me.
As far as the trade downs go, New England's the obvious at number 3, and for me that's all about if they draft a quarterback, are they ready to win right now? And I don't think that answer is even remotely close to yes. So I think trading down makes the most sense for them. New regime, stockpile picks, and they've got a new front office, new head coach, new era of Patriots football. Is that the most likely guaranteed trade down, whether it's with the Vikings or someone else tonight, or is it somewhere else?
No, I think I'm nervous that the Patriots will just stick and pick, and then we'll see Drake May, and we'll all have a tear roll down our eyes as Vikings fans. So, no, I think the most likely team to trade out all these is the Chargers, because their offensive weaponry stable is totally depleted. You do have a new regime in Harbaugh there, and the easiest way, if you think you're a good drafter, is to trade down, trade back, get a bunch of capital. They already have the hard part figured out at quarterback, Rashawn Slater on the left tackle side. So I think the Chargers are probably the most likely of the gang to trade back. And the reason I'm so steadfast that the Cardinals shouldn't or won't trade is they're going to get the best football player in this draft in Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison is a lock to be good. There's no mystery about it. So they would probably be a victim of overthinking if they trade back, and they need a wide receiver. So to me, the most likely team to trade out tonight, even more so than the Patriots, is the Chargers.
So the Chargers at pick 5. All sorts of intrigue in the top 10. You're gearing up for the draft tonight. Are you doing any live streaming that people can get in on, or are you just simply relaxing and diagnosing and probably putting out some live tweets throughout the event?
The latter. I always do the big football moments with my family in the moment. I've learned that that's the best way to do it, because I will be able to write quickly enough when the draft is over to get everybody up to speed, at least for my audience. And I'm always paranoid that if I have my face in front of a computer during every football game or every draft, then I'm just going to become a worker and not a fan first. So that's why I go to all the Vikings games at home. And on nights like that, like this, I tell the folks that ride the Vikings territory, yeah, I'll be on at about 9:30, 10. Or, I'll pop on there. You guys go hog wild, do what you need to do. But these moments, especially while my kids are young, these are like, precious time, so I can be there with them. So
okay, give me a couple clever headlines for tomorrow, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
Here's the clever headlines for me for Minnesota. The corny, cheesy, overused. I'm already going to roll my eyes when I hear it, no matter what fan base takes them. It's going to be May. Second one could be JJ to JJ or JJ squared. Could be for Minnesota. And then, I don't know, missed on the Knicks or what could be the headline on the negative side, or maybe Sammy Darnold's day. What's going to be the best headline, good or bad, that you pen at VikingsTerritory.com?
If it is Michael Penix or Bo Nix, those both have N-I-X in their names. I think it would probably be something like it's Nix after all. I have some sort of play on words with N-I-X. I just really don't think that's going to happen, so that's why I haven't got that deep. For May, it's probably going to be the Minnesota thing.
There you go.
Yep. And then I came up with, I'm a political science at heart, and I came up with McCarthyism. That's what the tactic was called way back in the 50s. I think I'm going to call it Minnesota McCarthyism or something to that effect.
Absolutely love that. It's a big-time draft tonight. All sorts of things to look forward to. You'll be in with us for a full hour tomorrow to recap and probably be talking about the future quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. If that doesn't happen, we talked about some positional fits. Give me those last predictions here, players that you love for the Vikings that aren't quarterbacks, picks 11, pick 23, just in case Kawasi doesn't pick up the phone or in case he gets hung up on several times tonight.
Yeah, well, you're going to have a really like a duality of Dustin Baker tomorrow. If they don't have Mayor McCarthy, I'm going to be long-faced.
Yep.
And, maybe call in sick. No, I'm just kidding.
What if they draft both Knicks and Penix? What's the headline
there?
there?
There was a mock draft that had, it was two of them. It was like Sam Munson's PFF mock draft that had the Vikings going back-to-back quarterback. I couldn't believe it. If it's not a quarterback, yes, I will be very sad tomorrow, but I do like Byron Murphy as the defensive tackle. The Vikings finally need to prioritize that spot. Quinion Mitchell would probably be my prediction. If they stick and pick at number 11 that's not a quarterback, I think it would probably be Quinion Mitchell. He feels like a sure thing. But I also think that no matter what, if they get the best defensive player available at number 11, then Michael Penix is probably on the way at 23. I will be flabbergasted if it's Bo Nix. I know you like to needle me a little bit, but I'm not joking. I've probably had on 40 guests on Vikes Now during this draft lead-up cycle. Like 39 of them can't stand Bo Nix as a fit on the Vikings roster. It's like a running joke, like as if I instruct them to say it, because they all say the same thing, that Nix is very glorified dink and dunker that only Sean Payton can fix, because that's kind of how Drew Brees felt coming out of college. But yeah, I don't want them to stick and pick and do back-to-back defense. I want this to be the time for a bold new era where they trade the King's ransom, where they get their quarterback. I come back to this. The Vikings have the NFL's fourth best regular season win percentage in the Super Bowl era. but they haven't won a Super Bowl. So you have to change. You have to try something different. In the last 25 years, they've had 25 different starting quarterbacks. This is your chance with Kirk Cousins out of the way, the best wide receiver in football. Do something different. Trade to get your guy. And if it's wrong, we've already had sorrow anyway. So let's try something new and switch it up. Let's do Drake May or J.J. McCarthy.
Very jealous. A much more exciting night for the Minnesota Vikings than my Green Bay Packers, but that ain't a bad thing either. The NFL Draft, our coverage here tonight on ESPN Radio begins at 6 o'clock. We're off the air early today to make way for the Minnesota Twins. That is our number one in a hurry. Caleb Williams, number one. Jaden Daniels, second. Drake May, third to the Vikings. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Joe Alt standing pat in the top 5. That's our mock draft. Look at that posted up on Twitter. Weigh in, weigh out, rip it up, tear it to shreds. We'll have you weigh in on that online in just a moment. Until tomorrow, my friend, I say this tongue-in-cheek, but exciting night for you and your team. Best of luck tonight to your Vikings.
It's going to be fun, and we'll talk to you one day from now.
I can't wait for it. Dustin Baker, top-tier coverage, all sorts of great articles, I'm sure, reaction and everything. Vikes Now on YouTube, VikingsTerritory.com. We'll talk to him tomorrow. Talk to you coming up after this break on Overtime.